Hi, welcome back, and thank you for returning to the old world. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and the same is true of collecting a model army. So I thought I'd share with you my experiences of my first purchase towards the new project and the first fantasy figures I've bought for quite a number of years now. What have I picked up? Well, I've got here, as you can see, a box of Dwarf Heavy Infantry. These are by North Star Military Figures, in association with Osprey Games for a game produced by Osprey called Oathmark. There are 30 models in this set, hard plastic 28mm. They retail for recommended £25, although you can obviously get them cheaper through your preferred local gaming store or online dealer, making these around 80 pence per figure. So that's a pretty good start. So what you get in the box? First thing is you get 30 25mm bases. These are your standard green bases you get in an awful lot of sets. Nothing particularly exciting to write home about there. They are, however, as I say, 25mm, so they will not be compatible if you're using these for Warhammer Fantasy, for example, or want to use these guys as regular infantry for things like Kings of War, which require a 20mm base as standard. So just something to bear in mind. You also get 6 identical sprues. Each of them have 5 bodies on them and enough weapons to equip them either with double-handed weapons. So you've got here 3 axes, a mace and a hammer, or with hand weapon and shield, sword and board equivalency. So you've got a mixture of hammers, axes, some swords, and some free arms to go with these shields. I do like these shields. I like the embossed design. I understand that your other dwarf units you can get in the range, so Dwarf Infantry and Dwarf Light Infantry, don't have shields like this. So this is something a little bit special for your heavy infantry. There are tons of head designs, absolutely loads of them, so that's really positive, I think. You can really go to town making sure that virtually all the models have got different heads. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 different heads. So there's going to be very few brothers in the unit, if that's the way you want to go, giving it a greater uniqueness to each character, which is fantastic. Command options. There is your funky axe for use by unit champion, and this Celtic style standard with just the icon on top. There is no crossbar, so no option really for putting on a banner. Would require some conversion work to get there. There's also no musician kit. Now again, for those of you used to Warhammer Fantasy style games, or even historic miniatures really, looking for your guy with a drum or a trumpet or some kind of other instrument to pass on messages to the unit, you are out feats of luck here. So either needing to source a miniature from another range or doing some conversion work on these ones. So again, just something to bear in mind. As for the quality of the figures, overall, I think they're pretty good, bearing in mind they're 80p-ish each, as opposed to a couple of pounds each, which other ranges, Citadel models, for example, you're looking at, for a plastic £1 figure, £1.80, £2 each. Huge difference, less than half the price. So, reasonable detail. They've not got tons, though, so it should mean, though, you can get grouped up a reasonable tabletop standard, and we'll have a look at painting them in my first unit for this army in a different video. There are quite a few mould lines that I found. They're quite discreet mould lines as well, so it was really dependent on how the light hit them to make sure I picked them up. overall they weren't too horrendous. I did have a problem, however, with the great weapons and making sure that the weapons linked in with the hands. I didn't find that they did that particularly well without leaving huge gaps in the back, which I was a little bit, given its rank and file, reluctant to then go in with a load of green stuff and have to try and fill the gaps and model it and faff about. So a couple of disadvantages with the set, but overall I was quite pleased. So what do they look like when you've put these guys together? Well, here's one of the chaps with a two-handed weapon. You'll see it hasn't quite fitted into his hand, but the back is not got horrendous gaps on it. So that was the sacrifice I made. Nice faceplate on the shield. I think I've got most of the mold lines. He's looking quite good on a 20mm base as well, as opposed to being on a 25, which is what they're designed to sit on. Other options, so we've got the unit champion type guy here. So this is hand weapon and shield. Again, this is what the range with hand weapon and shields would look like if you armed your unit that way. As for the wooden blocks, I'll come back to that in just a second. Finally, for the guys I put together, here is the standard bearer. So I mentioned if you want to put a flag on it, you need to make some changes. You do get 6 standards in the box because there's the 6 sprues, each one identical. So what I've done is off another sprue, I've cut this bottom piece off a standard, filed a flat spot and put it on there. My intention being, I'm thinking some coloured streamers to come down from the crosspole rather than a big banner, but we'll see what happens when I build the first unit up and get it all painted. Which leaves the obvious question, how do these guys rank up with other figures in your range, in your collection of dwarves you may already have? Well, here is a Games Workshop metal Thane. I've had this guy for quite a few years now. I've just touched him up recently. But looking at him, if we give him a couple of friends, we can see that he doesn't stand out too horrifically. He is broader, he is more imposing, as befits a character model, I think, to a certain extent. But he doesn't look hugely out of place, which is really good. So for character models that I already own that don't need too much rescuing, I can put them in the army. They'll stand out as characters, whilst not standing out as being something that blatantly doesn't fit in with the character of the army. So that's something that's really positive. I said I'd mention the wooden blocks. So what have we got there? Well, I mentioned that with the kit you get these 25mm bases, which are fine for Oathmark, not so good if you want a system where the infantry is on 20mm bases rather than the 25s. So I bought myself some 20mm square MDF bases. These are produced by Green Stuff World. What's really good about these is depth-wise, they are exactly the same size, as far as I can see, as a Games Workshop black plastic base. They're not tapered in the same way, so they are slightly different. But from a height perspective, particularly as these guys have the extra little plastic bit at the bottom on the base, it does mean height-wise they're not completely incompatible with your existing dwarves from Citadel. And that'll be covered up absolutely fine once the model has been based. Additionally, coming back to the 25mm, if I decided going forward that actually, as well as using these models maybe for Warhammer Fantasy, whatever edition, be it Old World, be it 8th, 6th, whatever, Kings of War. If I wanted to use them for Oathmark as well and needing 25mm bases, I can quite easily pop these guys on there with a view to gluing, flocking, painting, etc. in such a way as to try and blend the two bases into each other a little bit, just to make it not so glaring. But overall, I'm quite pleased with this kit. I'm looking forward to getting a whole unit out to have a look at, and I'll be going through my opening unit for this army in a separate video. So until then, thank you very much for dropping by. This is Return to the Old World. Have a great day.